The wind had been restless all afternoon, kicking up dust devils in the empty yard and rattling the tin sheets nailed over the barn's broken window. Cade Holloway didn't like the feel of it. A man raised on the plains learned to read the land as easy as the lines on his own palms, and everything in the air whispered trouble, cold trouble, sharp trouble, the kind that stole warmth and hope in equal measure. By sundown, that whisper had turned into a growl. By evening, the growl had become a roar. And by Christmas Eve, the blizzard had swallowed the world. The storm came in brutal, slashing waves of white, wind howling like a wounded beast as it clawed across the Holloway ranch. Snow battered the windows with the fury of 1,000 thrown pebbles. The porch lantern swung violently on its hook, throwing wild shadows across the buckling boards. Inside, Cade shoveled another log into the stove and forced the iron door shut. Sparks leaped like angry fireflies. "Pa," came a small voice behind him. "Is Santa gonna get lost?" Cade turned. Tiny Clara, his 6-year-old, stood barefoot on the braided rug, quilt trailing behind her like a cape. Her blonde braids were crooked, one ribbon half undone. She looked like a little pioneer ghost, drifting in the dim light. He crouched in front of her. "Storm'll come by morning, sweetheart. Santa's weatherproof, always has been." Clara bit her lip, unconvinced. "What if he can't see our house?" "He'll see us." Cade brushed a snowflake from her hair, though how it got there, Lord only knew. "And even if he don't, we already got the best gift right here. Warm stove, safe walls, and each other." She nodded slowly, her faith in her father outweighing her fear. "Kids were good at that." From the loft ladder, 8-year-old Tommy's voice drifted down. "Pa, something out there is moving." Cade stiffened. The boy scrambled halfway down the ladder, brown hair sticking up in every direction. "I seen it through the frost on the window, something by the fence line. It ain't the cows. Ain't no cow stands like that." Cade wiped his hands on his jeans and crossed to the nearest window. The glass was fogged, the outside world a swirling void of white. It was near impossible to see more than a few feet past the porch, let alone the fence. Still, he felt it, a pressure, a presence. The way the hairs on the back of his neck lifted, as if the storm itself held its breath. Probably just a branch, he told himself, or a tarp come loose. But something twisted in his gut, something he'd learned long ago not to ignore. "Stay here," he said quietly. Tommy's eyes widened. "Pa, stay, with your sister. Keep the fire going." He grabbed his coat from the peg and shrugged it on. The fabric was stiff, worn from years of use, stitched at the elbow by his late wife's steady hand. Cade paused only a heartbeat, just long enough to acknowledge the old ache, then took down the rifle from its wall rack. Clara clutched the edge of his coat. "Pa, don't go far." "I won't." But the truth was, he didn't know what the storm might force him to do. He stepped out onto the porch and the world slapped him in the face. The blizzard hit with a force that stole breath from his lungs. Snow stinging like a swarm of bees. His hat nearly tore off. He jammed it down with one hand and gripped the railing with the other. The cold sank into his bones instantly, creeping like a thief. The lantern's flame whipped crazily but held, barely. Cade squinted across the yard. Nothing but white chaos. Snow swirled in violent spirals, rushing north, then east, then nowhere at all. He stepped off the porch and trudged forward, boots sinking deep into powder that rose nearly to his knees. A cry cut through the wind. He froze. It was faint, barely more than a breath, a whimper maybe, but unmistakably human. Cade moved faster, fighting the storm's icy claws. His coat snapped behind him like a sail trying to tear free. The cry came again, closer. This time, this better weak. "Hello," he shouted, though the wind ripped the word apart. Another step, 2 more, and then he saw it. A figure slumped against the main gate, half buried in snow, head down, hair plastered with frost, arms limp at her sides. Her. Cade's heart kicked. He dropped to his knees beside her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No answer, only a faint rise and fall of breath, fragile as a dying ember. He brushed snow from her face. It was young, pale, lips tinged blue. Her lashes fluttered but didn't open. Her dress, Lord, what kind of woman traveled in such a dress during a storm? Was torn at the hem and soaked through. She wore no coat, just a thin shawl, crusted with ice. She'd freeze to death in minutes. Clara's voice shrilled from the porch. "Pa, is she okay?" Cade swallowed hard. "Get inside." He slid one arm under the woman's shoulders and the other beneath her knees. She was light to light, like a bundle of sticks wrapped in linen and cold as the snow itself. He lifted her against his chest, shielding her from the wind as best he could. Her head lolled against his shoulder. A whisper escaped her lips, too faint to make sense. "Don't you quit on me," Cade muttered, pushing through the drifts with renewed urgency. Halfway to the porch, her eyes cracked open just barely. "A sliver of storm-gray irises, please," she breathed. "You're safe," he told her. "You made it to a house. You're safe now." She shivered violently, then went limp again. Cade pushed through the door with his shoulder, snow exploding inward with him. Clara and Tommy jumped back, eyes huge as saucers. Tommy gasped. "Is she?" "She's alive." Cade knelt by the hearth and laid the woman on the rug. "Barely Clarafetch quilts." Tommy stirred that fire hotter. The children moved immediately, fear spurring their little legs into action. Cade worked quick fingers over the woman's pulse, weak, thready, but present. He stripped off her soaked shawl and boots, wincing at the frostbite already creeping across her ankles. Her toes were white, too white. He rubbed them briskly, trying to coax any warmth he could back into them. Clara returned with 2 quilts and dropped them beside him. Her chin trembled. "Pa." She was outside all alone. "She came a long way," Cade murmured. "Longer than she should have." He wrapped the woman tightly, layer over layer. Her breathing grew shallow, too shallow. Cade's stomach knotted. "What do we do?" Tommy whispered. Cade shook his head. "We keep her warm, and we pray." Minutes passed, then more. The fire crackled louder. The storm raged against the walls. The woman lay still except for the faintest twitch of her fingertips. Then suddenly a cough. Small, but strong enough to plant a seed of hope. Cade leaned over her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered open. For a moment, her gaze was wild, lost, scared. Then she saw him. A flicker of recognition. No, impossible. They'd never met. Her lips parted. "Your children. They're fine." Cade motioned toward the kids hovering nearby. "They're the ones who made me look outside. You owe your life to them." The woman blinked, then turned her face slightly toward the warmth of the fire. Thank you." Cade frowned. "What's your name?" She hesitated, and the look that crossed her face told him. Her name wasn't something she gave Iselior safely. Finally, in a weak whisper, she spoke one word. "Lydia." Cade nodded slowly. "I'm Cade Holloway. This here's Tommy, and that's Clara." The children waved timidly. Lydia tried to smile, but winced instead. Her whole body shook uncontrollably, teeth chattering hard enough to hurt. Cade pressed the back of his hand to her forehead. No fever. She wasn't sick, just frozen through. He fed more wood into the stove, and added another quilt across her shoulders. Lydia's eyes closed gratefully. After a few minutes, she whispered, "I didn't know if I'd make it." "You almost didn't." Cade looked her over again, dress torn, hands scraped, hair matted. Not a traveler, not a ranch hand, not someone prepared for the plains. "Where were you headed?" Lydia didn't answer immediately. Instead, she drew her knees closer beneath the quilt, shrinking as if bracing for judgment. "I had to run," she murmured. The words were soft, heavy, shaking in a way the cold alone couldn't explain. Tommy exchanged a look with Clara. Cade's jaw tightened. He'd heard that tone before years ago, in another woman's voice. His late wife's cousin, who'd shown up bruised and terrified one spring morning. "Run from what?" Cade asked carefully. Lydia's eyes darted toward the window, toward the storm, as if something out there still hunted her. My wedding," she whispered. Cade's brows shot up. "Your wedding?" Lydia nodded faintly. "Tonight. I was supposed to be married tonight. To a man you didn't want, a man I feared." Her voice cracked. "I couldn't go through with it, so I ran. I didn't think the storm would come so fast. I thought I could reach town, or the road, or something." Cade exhaled slowly. "You reached here instead." She looked at him, then really looked, eyes glassy, full of exhaustion and something deeper. Relief, maybe, or disbelief that she was still alive. "Your children," Lydia whispered. "They asked you to help." Cade glanced at Tommy and Clara, who were pretending not to listen. "They did." Lydia's voice broke. "Thank God. If I'd collapsed anywhere else along that road." "You didn't," Cade said firmly. "You're here now, and nothing will harm you under my roof." A tear slipped down her cheek, hot at first, freezing at the edge of her jaw. Outside, the storm screamed louder, as if furious it had lost its prey. Cade stoked the fire again. Then he arose, grabbed the kettle, and filled it with snow to melt for tea. He moved with purpose, but inside, something uneasy churned. A runaway bride on Christmas Eve, cold shaken, terrified, didn't end up at his gate by chance. Trouble had brought her here, and trouble, he knew, rarely traveled alone. And as he set the kettle on the stove, another sound threaded through the wind, a distant creak, a jingle of metal, a gate chain. Cade's blood chilled. Someone nor something was out there, and it wasn't the storm. The sound came again, a metallic clink, faint but sharp enough to cut through the blizzard's howl. Cade stiffened where he stood by the stove, hand hovering near the kettle. That wasn't wind. It wasn't ice snapping a fence rail or the usual night sounds, muffled by snow. It was deliberate, heavy, human. Lydia's face blanched as she heard it too. She tightened her grip on the quilt, knuckles white. Cade stepped toward the window and wiped a circle in the frost with his palm. The lantern on the porch swung violently outside, its light tossing frantic shadows across the yard, but he saw no figure, just snow heaped and swirling. But the noise, there it was again, a slow, scraping drag along the fence. Tommy and Clara huddled behind him. "Pa," Tommy breathed. "Is it Santa's reindeer?" "No," Cade whispered, hand dropping instinctively to the rifle propped against the doorframe. "It ain't." He didn't want to leave the house, didn't want to step back into that murderous cold. Not with his children inside and a half-frozen stranger fighting for her life on the rug. But something about the sound tightened every muscle in him, something that said this storm brought more than just snow. He turned to Lydia. "You expecting someone?" Her eyes darted away, but not before he caught the fear there. Not ordinary fear, either bond-deep hunted fear. Cade knelt beside her. "Lydia, who knew you were running? Who cared enough to chase you in a blizzard?" Her lips parted, trembling. I don't know that he followed me. I didn't think he would. But the man I was supposed to marry, he isn't the type to be told no." Something twisted in Cade's gut. "And he's the type who'd come after you like this." Her silence was answer enough. Cade stood slowly. The storm roared against the walls, the house shuddering with each furious blast. The Holloway ranch had weathered decades of winters, but tonight, Cade felt the weight of danger pressing in from all directions, the wind, the darkness, and now, whoever stalked his fence line. He crossed to the gun rack again. "Tommy, get your sister up in the loft." "But Pa now," he said, firm but calm. Tommy grabbed Clara's hand and led her toward the ladder. She looked back over her shoulder. "Pa, don't let the bad man in." "I won't," Cade promised, even though he didn't yet know how much that promise might cost him. When the kids disappeared above, Cade checked the rifle's load, then turned to Lydia. He kept his voice low. "Can you stand if you need to?" She shook her head. "My legs, they won't hold me yet." "Then stay here by the fire. Keep wrapped up. Don't move unless you have to." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bring danger to your home." Cade swallowed hard. "You didn't bring it. It came looking, storm or not. A man who chases a woman through the cold ain't someone who'd let her go easy." He opened the door, and the storm slammed into him like a wall. Snow whipped at his face, stinging his skin raw. He stepped onto the porch, rifle angled downward but ready. The lantern's flame struggled, bowing and twisting in the relentless wind, barely casting more than a small circle of light. Cade peered beyond it into the yard. There dash movement, just at the far fence line, a dark shape shifting between the gusts. Cade's finger tightened on the trigger. "Who's out there?" he shouted above the gale. The storm swallowed his voice whole. He took another step forward, snow already piling on his shoulders. The shape moved again, closer this time. A tall figure, wrapped in thick coat and scarf, pushing through the drifts with stubborn determination. He held something in his hand, long and heavy. A rifle. Cade's pulse hammered. The figure paused just inside the lantern's reach and lifted, a gloved hand to shield his eyes from the wind. "Holloway," he called, voice deep and muffled by the storm. "That you?" Cade didn't lower his weapon. "Who's S?" The man took one more step forward. The lantern caught his face, rugged, bearded, snow-packed in his eyebrows and jacket seams. His breath came in thick, smoky plumes. "Name's Warren Bishop," he said. "I'm looking for someone. Figured maybe you'd seen her." Cade's jaw clenched. Warren Bishop. He recognized the name. Vaguely large cattle operation up north. Reputation for money, muscle, and a temper as sharp as barbed wire. "What's someone?" Cade asked carefully. Bishop's eyes narrowed into icy slits. "A woman, small thing, brown hair, green dress, was supposed to be my wife tonight." Cade felt the tension in his entire body coil tight. Every instinct screamed to keep his face neutral and his gun steady. "Storm's too thick to see anything," Cade said smoothly. "Ain't been outside except to check my stock. No visitors." Bishop stepped another foot closer, boots crunching through the drift. "You sure about that?" "As sure as I can be," Cade replied. Bishop studied him. Hard, too hard. The kind of stare that measured every breath for lies. Then, slowly, Bishop scanned the porch. The snow clumps kicked up near the steps, the wet patches melting around Cade's boots, the faint drag mark near the railing. His gaze sharpened. "You've been carrying something," Bishop said. Not a question, an accusation. Cade didn't flinch. "Firewood. Looks heavier than firewood." Cade met the man's glare without blinking. "Storm's got you seeing ghosts." For a moment, neither moved. Wind howled between them, tugging coats and flicking ice across their cheeks. Then Bishop leaned forward slightly. "If she comes this way, you let me know. She ain't got any business running off on a night like this. Girl don't understand what's good for her." Cade's jaw tightened. "Maybe you didn't ask her what she wanted." Bishop's eyes went cold. "Some things ain't a woman's place to decide." Cade's grip on his rifle turned to iron. He forced himself not to raise it. "Move on, Bishop," he said quietly, dangerously. "Storm's bad. You'll freeze." "I'll freeze when I find her," Bishop snapped. "Not before." Without waiting for a response, he turned and trudged back toward the road. Disappearing into the storm's swirling maw, Cade stayed on the porch until Bishop's shape vanished completely into the white. Then he waited longer still, listening just in case the man doubled back. Only when he was certain did he retreat inside and shut the door tight against the raging wind. Lydia stared up at him from the rug, her face ghostly pale. Was it him? It was. Cade bolted the door, set a chair under the handle, then drew the curtains. "He's still close. He ain't giving up." Fear rippled across her features. "He'll kill me." Clara, watching from the loft, covered her mouth. Tommy leaned halfway down the ladder. "Pa, we can't let him hurt her." Cade turned to them, voice steady. "No one's hurting anyone. Not while I'm here." He took a knee beside Lydia again. Up close, she was shivering harder, panic mixing with cold. Cade placed a gentle but firm hand on her shoulder. "Tell me everything," he said. "No more pieces. No more half-truths. If a man like Bishop is willing to chase you into a blizzard, there's more to the story." Lydia swallowed. Tears pooled at the corners of her eyes. She seemed to fight invisible walls inside herself. Shame, fear, secrets she'd locked so deep she barely knew how to bring them out. Finally, in a broken whisper, she began. "I wasn't just running from the wedding," she said. Cade nodded slowly. "Go on." "I was running from him. From what he did." She closed her eyes, breath trembling. "My family arranged the marriage. They owed him money more than they could repay. Marrying me to him was the cost." Cade's stomach twisted. The West had its share of darkness, debts, deals, and daughters treated like livestock, but it never got easier to hear. "I told them I didn't want it," Lydia continued, "but they wouldn't listen. They said a bishop never breaks his word, and he didn't." Her voice cracked. "He came to collect." Cade felt heat surge in his chest, anger, sharp and protective. "What did he do?" he asked quietly. Lydia pulled the quilt tighter around her. "He said once I was his wife, he'd straighten me out, teach me obedience, and if I ever ran." She shuddered violently. "He said I wouldn't live long enough to regret it." Clara whimpered from the loft. Tommy's fists clenched. Cade inhaled through his nose, forcing the storm of his temper back into his chest. "So you ran before the wedding?" "I didn't plan to. I only meant to step outside for air." The storm hadn't hit yet, but he followed me to the porch, grabbed my arm, told me he'd break me in like a wild mare. Clara covered her ears. Tommy looked ready to spit nails. Lydia continued, voice hollow. "I fought him. I got free. I ran. I don't remember much after that, just the cold, the darkness, and then your gate." Cade steadied her with a hand against her back. "You did the right thing. No man's got a claim to you like that. Not with fear. Not ever." Her eyes glistened. "He won't stop, Cade. He's the kind of man who'd set the whole prairie on fire to track one person." She trembled harder. "You and your children. I shouldn't be here. I'm putting you in danger." Cade shook his head. "You didn't choose this storm or him, and I ain't turning you out, and whether that'd kill a full-grown bull." Thunderous wind slammed against the house again, harder than before. The walls rattled. Lydia flinched. "He'll come back." "He might," Cade admitted. "But if he does, He'll find a Holloway stand-in between him and what ain't his. Lydia stared at him, really looked at him as if seeing, for the first time, a man who wasn't trying to own her or break her, just protect her. Cade stood and paced once, twice, thinking hard. He ain't the type to search blind. He'll loop back. Storm'll hide his tracks, but he'll circle, maybe in minutes, maybe in an hour, but he'll return. What do we do? Tommy called softly. Cade's eyes lifted to the loft. We prepare. He checked locks, reloaded ammunition, banked the fire, fed Lydia warm tea, wrapped her in 2 more quilts. Every action was quiet but firm. The movements of a man who'd already decided the line he would not let another cross. Outside, the blizzard screamed like a living thing. Inside, the Holloway cabin felt smaller, tighter, holding a single fragile flame of warmth against the winter that wanted to devour it. And somewhere, in that white hell beyond the porch, Warren Bishop was circling back. The Holloway cabin held its breath. Wind screamed through the cracks like a warning. Snow pelted the roof in angry fists. The fire crackled low but steady, spreading thin warmth across the room. Cade stood at the window, rifle in hand, watching the endless white churn like a cauldron. He didn't speak for a long time. He didn't need to. His stillness said enough. Lydia watched him from the rug, still swaddled in quilts. Her body had stopped shivering, but a shadow of fear lingered in every movement. Tommy and Clara sat halfway up the loft ladder, refusing to hide completely. They wanted to see their father, to feel his presence steady them. "Pa," Clara whispered. "Is he Cumin?" "Yes," Cade said softly. Storms near, masking his footsteps, but not enough. "What do we do, Pa?" Tommy asked. Cade tightened his jaw. "We stay together, and we stay smart." He turned from the window finally, and knelt beside Lydia. "You warm enough?" She nodded, but he could see the tremble still at the edge of her breath. "Listen to me," Cade said. "If he gets near this place, and I mean near, he'll go to the back pantry where it's warmest. Hide behind the grain sacks. Kids'll go with you. You don't move. You don't make a sound. You hear me?" Lydia swallowed hard. "You can't face him alone." Cade's eyes softened just a fraction. "I got more to lose than he does. That makes me a whole lot more dangerous." She shook her head. "Warren Bishop isn't afraid of anything. He will be." Before Lydia could speak again, a sharp sound cut through the howl of the storm. Not wind, not branches, a heavy, deliberate stomp on the porch. Clara gasped and clapped a hand over her mouth. Tommy's eyes widened in terror. Cade stood slowly, every muscle taut, rifle rising in his hands. 3 more steps. Scrape. Creak. Then a fist slammed against the door so hard the hinges rattled. "Open up, Holloway." Bishop's voice roared through the wood. "You lied to me?" Cade didn't move. "Open this damn door." Lydia curled in on herself, tears gathering in her eyes. Cade stood between her and the door, body unmoving, voice low enough only she and the kids could hear. "Now," he whispered. Tommy grabbed Clara's hand. Lydia pushed herself upright, legs weak but driven by survival. Cade helped her to her feet, quick, gentle, and whispered, "Follow the kids. Go." Lydia hesitated. Just 1 heartbeat. "Cade, don't die." "Not tonight," he murmured. She slipped toward the pantry with the kids. Cade watched until the door quietly clicked shut behind them. Only then did he turn back toward the cabin door. Another slam shook the frame. "Holloway," Bishop shouted. "I know she's in there. Only place she could have gone. You open this door or I'll tear it off. It's godforsaken hinges." Cade walked forward slow, deliberate, like a man stepping onto sacred ground. He didn't open the door. Instead, he lifted the bar from its brace, eased the handle, then stopped with the latch barely clicked. "You need to think real hard about what you're doing," Cade called through the door, voice calm but edged in steel. "You got something that belongs to me," Bishop snarled. "I'll have her back, one way or another." Cade's gaze darkened. "She ain't yours. Ain't never been. You don't own people, Bishop. You don't know a damn thing about this. That girl was promised to me, not by her." Silence crackled between them under the storm. Then Bishop growled, "Move aside." Cade answered by throwing the door open. The wind exploded inward, snow blasting across the floor. Bishop stood on the porch, towering, hulking, coat flapping wildly in the gale. His eyes burned with cold fury. Cade stepped out, closing the door behind him. They faced each other beneath the swinging lantern, the storm twisting around them like a living spirit, waiting to witness a reckoning. Bishop shoved forward. "Where is she?" Cade blocked the door with his body. Safe. You'd think a quilt and a fire's gonna save her. Bishop's lip curled. She's my wife. No, Cade said, voice low. She's a woman you scared half to death. She's a debt paid in flesh. Bishop's breath steamed in the cold, hands tightening around the rifle he carried. The moment she ran, she made herself mine to punish. Cade's rifle lifted just an inch. You raise that gun, and I'll drop you before you pull the trigger. Bishop barked a laugh. You got kids in there, Holloway. You really want to die on Christmas Eve, for some runaway bride you don't even know. Cade's voice didn't waver. I ain't dying, and she ain't going anywhere with you. Bishop's face twisted. You think she wants to stay here, with a widower and his snot-nosed brats? Cade didn't flinch. I think she wants to live, and you ain't a man who lets people do that. Bishop snarled, then stepped forward, and Cade fired. Not a kill shot, a warning. The bullet tore into the porch board inches from Bishop's boot, splintering wood. The lantern swung violently. Snow burst upward. Bishop froze. Cade chambered another round so smoothly the click echoed like thunder. Next one goes where I aim it. Bishop's gloves tightened around his rifle. You wouldn't dare try me. For a breathless moment, the whole night held still. The storm even seemed to pause, wind softening, snow drifting instead of slashing. Then Bishop swung his rifle. Up. Cade's second shot cracked through the storm. It hit Bishop's gunstock, shattering it in his hands. Bishop stumbled backward. Shocked. Cade closed the distance in 3 furious strides, grabbed Bishop by the collar, and slammed him against the porch post so hard snow fell from the rafters. You listen close. Cade growled, voice barely human. You come after her again ever, you won't walk away. You won't breathe away. You'll vanish into this land so quiet the crows won't bother picking at you. Bishop choked, struggling against Cade's grip. She's mine. Cade slammed him again. Say it one more time. Bishop's eyes darted rage, mixing with the first glimmer of fear he'd probably felt in his life. You're Mackin, a dangerous enemy. He spat. Cade shoved him away. Bishop fell into the snow, scrambling backward through the drifts. Storm's only getting worse. Cade warned. You keep pushing and you'll freeze before you hit the road. Bishop rose, panting heavily, clutching his broken rifle. He glared at Cade with venom, but something else doubt flickered beneath it. This ain't over. Yeah, Cade said quietly. It is. Bishop staggered away from the porch, then into the storm. Swallowed by white, Cade watched until even the crunch of footsteps faded. He waited a full minute longer, listening, breathing, steadying his pulse before he finally stepped back inside and shut the door. Warmth smothered him. Firelight, safety, home. The pantry door creaked open. Tommy rushed out first. Pa, did you kill him? No, Cade said. Didn't need to. Clara launched herself at his legs, arms tight around him. He lifted her easily, holding her close. Lydia stepped out last. Her face was pale, eyes shining, hands trembling not from cold but from the weight of everything that had just happened. Cade, she whispered. He walked to her slowly, gently releasing Clara into Tommy's arms. Lydia stood against the pantry door as if gravity had doubled. Her voice broke. He would have killed me. Not while I'm standing, Cade said softly. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent, relieved, exhausted. Cade reached out and brushed one away with a thumb. You're safe here, he murmured. Storm will pass. Bishop won't be back tonight. And when morning comes, we'll ride to the sheriff. Make sure the law keeps him far from you. Lydia nodded, breath shaking. Thank you. For me. And for your children. I didn't deserve any of this kindness. Cade held her gaze, his voice warm as the fire behind him. No one deserves to be hunted, and everyone deserves a place to start over. She stared at him long enough for the storm outside to ease from a scream to a howl, then to a heavy whisper. Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. A place like this. Cade's heartbeat softened. If you want it. The kids listened from the latter, eyes hopeful, hearts wide. Lydia stepped closer, her fingers brushing his hand, the first warm touch she'd given anyone in months. I do. The storm outside finally began to break, snow settling, wind sighing instead of roaring. Christmas morning would come soon, and in a small ranch house on the plains, lit by a flickering fire and warmed by the quiet breath of peace after violence, a new beginning waited.